How's the Detroit Sports Podcast going?
This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Hey everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news or breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
Thanks, everybody, for downloading the latest edition of the Doc and Jock podcast, episode 309. Anywhere you can find podcasts, you can find the network. I appreciate it. We got a good show for you today, recapping the Rocket Mortgage Classic. Adam got his golf on, went out there and enjoyed Saturday afternoon and had himself a good time. And we'll see how that went for Adam. We got to talk about a little bit of free agency and talking about, all right, some of the moves have been made by our favorite basketball teams and hockey teams, and we got to get a sense of, all right, do we like the moves? Kind of secondary moves in terms of who we got, especially compared to the rest of the NBA and the NHL. We'll talk about that. Got a special guest. Darren McCarty will be on this podcast. We want to talk about his impressions of developmental camp and what he thinks of the hiring of Steve Yzerman. And then, to end the podcast, Adam and I will have a fun debate because Adam, I think, did a major no-no in terms of attending a sporting event. He got tickets to go to the Rocket Mortgage Classic, and then he did something. I'm like, okay, let's meet up. After like 2.5 hours, Adam wasn't there anymore. So we'll describe where he went and things like that. But the time that you did spend in Detroit at the Detroit Golf Club, did you like it?
Yeah, it was crazy awesome. Honestly, it was. So I have rode a bike by that subdivision, like where the actual Detroit Golf Club is housed, how it is like bunkered down in this, I want to say, palatial estate of exotic homes in this little area in the middle of Detroit. It's so weird where it's placed, but I've driven my bike by there. Me and the wife would have sometimes gone bike riding when we lived in Hamtramck, and we would take Davison over to Woodward, and we'd take Woodward up, and we'd go into Ferndale, Berkeley, or Royal Oak when we'd go for a bike ride. And we've driven by it, but you never knew it was there. It was like a little hidden secret. And when we were getting bussed over, it just blew my mind because they just kept taking you deeper and deeper and deeper. You're like, well, how far back are we going to go? I didn't even know it went this far back. And next thing you know, you're there. And you're like, how? It was like, honestly, envision walking across a desert and then you see some palm trees in this little grassy area and you walk upon this oasis. That's what it was. I thought it was awesome. I was really impressed with the job they did. I thought everything from the amenities to the setup to the little booths that they had where you could get different things. They were giving away free massages and stretches. They were allowing you to take a golf shot in order to win, I think it was $50,000. And it was free. All of it was free. You could take a couple different swings and test out different golf clubs and different drivers and get fitted for different things. And the entire setup was awesome, if you ask me. I thought it was incredibly well done. The one thing I would probably critique for these professionals, that course is way too easy. There was a point there where we walked across, I think it was the 13th fairway, and it was the area where you would basically walk across to get from one half of the golf outing to the other half.
Yep.
And when we walked across it, I remember looking at the fairway and thinking to myself, I could hit a solid shot off this.
Yes.
The fairways were so tight and so everything was so neat and compact. Even the rough, the rough, I've played on fairways that their rough was considered. Do you know what I'm saying? And it was so meticulous. I think it might have been a little bit too meticulous because I don't think there was a difficult shot on that course.
Nick Faldo said it. He said that they need to add bunkers around the green. So if you make a mistake, then you're in a sand trap, or add more of a challenge for these guys.
I'm glad you say that because when we're walking across that particular fairway, my buddy who I went with, there was a sand trap near the green, near it. It was in no way in the way of the green, and it was in no way hindering your shot. But it was like next to it, but way off to the side. And we both looked at each other like, why the hell is that bunker there? Like, it serves like zero purpose. There's no reason for it to be there. It's not going to impede you. It's not a challenge. I mean, unless you hit an absolutely god-awful shot, it's not a challenge. Even I think I could hit a solid shot to get around that because it was in no way in your way.
But now that Nate Lashley won it because he ran away with the tournament, it looks a little bit skewed because there's been talk and a review of the scores. And comparatively speaking, the score that got second place, minus 19, is comparative to what a lot of other PGA Tour winners are around, between 16 and 19 under for this year. So I do think they're going to tweak it a little bit, maybe just make one par 5 a par 4, make it a par 71, and I think you're right there in line with a quality competitive tournament. But I just think that in terms of having an initial first-year tournament, to have a guy win it wire to wire, the last entrant to win it was so awesome because you had a story.
And that was a great story. That was phenomenal.
And unfortunately, he went through some tragedy too. So to realize that, to get into it, Nate Lashley, he was an alternate. He came to Michigan on Monday, played the Orchards, didn't qualify, but kind of was told, look, be around, maybe potentially you could get in. He had to call up his caddy and say, look, I know you're in Arizona, but get out here. I think there's a chance. And his caddy was feeling good at the way that Nate has been playing. So he takes a flight and gets in. And on Wednesday, Nate Lashley finds out he is literally the last guy in. So it's pure luck to get into the tournament. And then right away he shoots an amazing first-round score. Again, shoots a 63 on Saturday, and he was the runaway leader, and he had basically a relaxing round on Sunday. So it made it it didn't make it so that it was really ultra-competitive on Sunday because the other guys had to shoot like 60 even to have a chance, and then Nate would have had to really blown up, but he played really well. And the one thing that you do realize watching these guys up close, the ability that they have to hit a golf ball right to left,
crazy,
left to right putt. I mean, literally, I watched a guy hit the ball over a tree that was literally 80 foot high, and he got the ball over maybe by an inch.
Yeah.
And he just looks at the ball and goes, all right, I'm going over the tree. And he just went and executed it. I saw Nate Lashley's second shot on number 2. He's in the rough, and he takes a nice swing and gets the ball out. And it's just, you just have to marvel at the fact that if you go to these tournaments, you can, if you just watch, and I tweeted it out, if you just watch some of the guys that are like in the mid 15s and a little bit lower ranked, you can watch them like how at the very close distance that you and I are. You can watch them hit great golf shots. And I just think it's the Rocky Mortgage Classic is a great addition for Detroit, and I'm hoping that in the years to come, more names come. It's a lot more exciting. And I think if they have it around the time of a little bit after the U.S. Open, I think you're going to get some good names. And at least, look, you got to look at it and say Dustin Johnson, Gary Woodland, and others did not make the cut.
Yeah.
So you realize Bubba Watson, some names tried to come to Detroit, make no cut. And when you don't make a cut, you make no money. So it's a fascinating look at how things are put together. The one thing they have to improve, and in 2019 I think should be a priority, is you got to have good internet access. All the fans that wanted to tweet, if I wanted to message you, it wouldn't have gone through. If we wanted to link up, it's just...
Everything was delayed.
It was super tough.
Nuts.
I was lucky to have access to Wi-Fi through the media center. Otherwise, none of that content that you guys saw on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast, you would have never seen it.
And you did a phenomenal job. You did an absolutely great job covering it every single day. It was awesome.
Yeah.
For me, and I knew I was going on Saturday. It felt like I was there because of your coverage. It was exceptional.
It was a culmination of reporting and being there and just having a little bit of luck as well. Got a chance to talk to a lot of the golfers. So gracious.
Tell your story about Nick Faldo. I thought that was interesting.
It was a great story. Yeah, so it's a great story. Okay, so obviously when you're a first-time reporter covering PGA, you're going to have some restrictions. And so I had what we called outside the rope access. So I was like the fans. I could be there. I could go in the media center. I could talk to all the players. But in terms of in competition, I couldn't get inside the ropes because I'm a first year and I'm a podcast. And he said that a lot of times on the PGA Tour, they're reserved for full-time PGA reporters, writers, things like that. But I said, look, I'm going to show you that I'm going to earn it next year. And he said, fine, no problem. And he's like, wow, you put out stuff every day. You got interviews and things like that. So the way that shook out was, so the tournament had ended and Nate Lashley's getting his trophy. And there was so many people. I could have gone on the 18th green and been there, but there was a sea of people. His family, all the media was there. And so I'm like, I don't really want to be kind of crammed up on people and try to fight my way and maybe have them say, oh, well, you got this badge that says outside. So I'm like, yeah, forget it. I was a little dejected. I'm like, okay, it would have been cool to have been on the green. But I'm walking back, just kind of, recapping everything, going, man, it was a good day. And then all of a sudden, I see a Porta-John and I see Nick Faldo walking into it. I'm like, wait a minute, that's Nick Faldo. And I'm like, okay. And then he walks into it and he's got his lady friend sitting right there. And I just walk up to her and I say, I was nice. I said, "Is that Mr. Faldo?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "I'm a big fan. You think he'd give me a minute or two of his time?" And she looked and she said, "Who are you with?" And I said, "Detroit Sports Podcast." And she said, "Okay, maybe." So I kind of walk off to the side, and he waits a minute or two, and he comes out. And she goes up to him and says, you want to give this guy some time? He goes, "Sure." And I'm so excited. I just immediately put the camera up, and he looks and goes, "We probably don't want the Porta-Johns in our view here." So we took 5 steps over. And I'm like, "Oh my God, Mr. Faldo, thank you. I'm a big fan. I remember watching the Masters. It's great that you gave me this time." He's like, "No problem." And then we just went right into it. And it was just like that.
Yeah.
And so I felt like, okay, you know what? Really, it embodies what I do. Is that I was kind of bummed a little bit not to do something that everyone else was doing. But then I got an exclusive interview with one of the major players in the world of golf that nobody else got on camera. And it was cool because of the fact that I just went right into it. And I think the best way for me is, like I said, I just go and do it, ask it. Like, had I gone through the channel, that probably would have got a denial. I just asked nicely, said I was a fan, asked him the 2 questions that I knew I had ready was, what'd you think of the week and what'd you think of Detroit? And he gave thoughtful answers, and he was really engaged, and he was a nice man.
Yeah, he was just pretty candid, too.
Candid, honest, and in 2 minutes, I wish I would have had more, but you just realize, wow, this guy summarized what everybody knew, and I got a chance to have something different. And to have the ability to say that U.S. Open champ Gary Woodland's on our air exclusively, Nick Faldo, the coverage, the photos, what I was able to do, it was all in all a good time. And like I said, they were impressed because they said thank you for all the coverage, because they just wanted, coverage of the event. And obviously you got the papers just with 4, 5, 6 staff members, and it was just me on the course in the interview room, on the course in the interview areas. So I literally walked over 150,000 steps, walked the course literally 3, 4 times, figured out my
you could have been a caddy.
I could have been the caddy. I know my way around. Exactly. And I would have probably, and looking at the course, I would have added some bunkers, and I would have made it a par 71, one of the par 5s, make it a par 4. And I think they'll look at some of the competitiveness, but the players loved it. The players love scoring. So in that sense, I don't know how much they're going to be willing to do it, because a lot of the players were just like, this is great. A lot of the fans of Detroit are good golf fans. Fans of Detroit are good.
Here's the thing I'll say, right? If you look at the field, the majority of this field was, in a wrestling sense, it was a lot of lower mid-card talent.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot of big names. I mean, Ricky was probably the biggest name, Ricky Fowler, and this was essentially his tournament, because he is the guy for Rocket Mortgage. So all that being said, I think next year, if you're going to do some tweaks, you're going to do a couple things. Me and my buddy were joking that Bubba and Dustin Johnson owed Ricky a favor. That's why they were here.
Yeah.
So you need some of those names. It was cool to see some of those other guys, and it was really cool to see some of the local talent that was able to play it.
Yes.
But you need some of those bigger names to make it a little bit more of a draw, and I think that'll come.
Or a Tiger, maybe a Jordan Spieth.
Not even necessarily Phil or Tiger, but like you said, Spieth. Like DJ needs to make the cut.
Yeah.
If you can get, I don't know. I mean, even Bubba could have made the cut.
Yeah.
Honestly, you need somebody that the casual golf fan can be like, oh, I know that guy. It
was Ricky Fowler, and I think what it caused was many people felt like the 15th hole was going to be a party hole, and what they did was they filled it up with like sponsor tents, and there wasn't a lot of fans in that section. I think they got to figure out a way just to add a couple more grandstands as well, so that it can kind of organically become a spot, because it was a little bit more subdued and things like that, but it was, like I said, packed, sold out. So Detroit came out. You guys did a good job.
Yeah, phenomenal job,
the golfers noticed, like, whoa, we're not used to seeing crowds like that in a first-year tournament, especially in the heart of downtown Detroit. So all the golfers were like, we're so appreciative that everyone said, thank you for coming. All the chants were appropriate. Everybody had a good time with it. I think everybody associated with the Rocket Mortgage Classic was impressed.
I think everybody was really respectful, too. You didn't hear any bad pub coming out of the tournament as far as drunken or disorderly fans. I was really surprised that you could get beers as cheap as you could get beers, and you could drink as freely as you could drink.
Yeah.
That really shocked me.
And Detroiters got their drink on, tell me.
They did.
But they kept it appropriate.
They did, and I thought it was awesome. I was so impressed.
Yes.
And me and my buddy who I went with, I ended up talking to my dad later on that weekend, and I told my dad, I said, hey, I talked to him on Sunday. I said, we're going next year. Like we're definitely going next year.
Yes.
I even let another one of my buddies know, who I ended up having dinner with later on Saturday night. I said, hey, we're going next year. So if you want to go with us, you're more than welcome. So it's going to be one of those events where it's going to grow. It was fantastic. It really was. Detroit did a great job. Rocket Mortgage did a phenomenal job. Again, the only critique is I feel like the course needed to be a little bit more challenging, and if there was a way to possibly get another name or two, because it really felt like it was Ricky, and then it was a bunch of other guys. And when you look at the way everything played out, Ricky was in that mid-tier talent. You know what I'm saying? He didn't run away with it. You thought he might have. He sure as hell didn't.
Now, before we get to our interview with Darren McCarty, some news was made regarding the Detroit Pistons. They made a signing. Derrick Rose, former NBA MVP, is now a member of the Detroit Pistons. Now, when you look at the landscape and all the moves that were made with KD and Kyrie going to Brooklyn, the moves that were made by the Warriors in terms of extending Klay Thompson the love and extending him, the Lakers getting, Anthony Davis now paired with LeBron, it just kind of seems like a really, tertiary, secondary move by the Pistons. Not one that's super impressive. I mean, it's a slight upgrade over Ish Smith, but again, the part that's frustrating as we sit here is you got two guys that are superstars on your team, Derrick Rose and Blake Griffin, that at any time in the season could go down. And that's the most frustrating, scary part of this addition is that you got a guy that you're giving $7.5 million a year to that you would be thrilled if he played 70 games.
Yeah.
Thrilled. Like, yes, keep him healthy.
This is, so when the news broke that they signed Derrick Rose, I ended up sending a message to the show group chat. And that was just to let the guys know what was going on, because I think I knew before they knew. And I said, I feel like this is your big three. It's Blake, it's Andre, unfortunately, and it's Derrick Rose's knees. And Drew responds with, that's a big four. Honestly, you need to count on Derrick Rose and his knees holding up here, which is scary.
Yeah. No, I did that because it's no big deal.
Oh.
Derrick Rose being, you heard the dial tone there, and I was like, what's going on with the dial tone?
Yeah, I didn't, because I know we're setting up for an interview here. So I was like, wait, what's going on?
No,
but you're right. But here's the thing. This is the thing, okay? As you totally threw me off. Good move by you. I like that. The move to sign Derrick Rose, like you said, it was secondary, and it feels like it was secondary. But this team doesn't have the cap flexibility to go out and sign a big name. So what you have here is you go out, you sign Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose is a guy who you can sell tickets to. People know who he is. He's a name. Yeah, he's at the end of his career, and yeah, he probably isn't as good as he once was. He had a pretty decent season last year. He really did. And he's trying to prove that he can do it again. So I like that. On top of all of that, you now put yourself in a position where, come the trade deadline, you can move on from Reggie Jackson. You can trade Reggie Jackson to somebody. I don't know what you're going to get, and I don't know how it's going to work out, but you now put yourself in a spot where, I know a couple people are like, why can't you just trade him now? Trade him now. Nobody wants to pay that contract. Why would you pay that contract now when you could pay 47% of it later? Do you know what I'm saying? And get a rental. So that way you can then move on from him at the end of the year. At the same time, the Pistons are moving on, and they just freed up cap space. So this was a good move because it allows them flexibility in the future. I see what you're saying about Derrick Rose, and everybody should be apprehensive about it because he has to stay healthy. But all that being said, I think if you're a Detroit Piston fan, you should feel pretty happy about this move. It's not great, and it's not going to blow your doors off, but it's a move that helps set you up for the future.
Enough of a move to win a playoff series, because I think the roster is good enough, if healthy, to make the playoffs.
Right.
You could probably get 45 to 50 wins if you get lucky, some breaks fall your way. But is it good enough to compete if you're a 7 seed and you go up against the likes of a Philadelphia? That's the problem, is that it just feels like it's a move to maybe slightly upgrade, but it's not good enough, especially when the Sixers got better. The Celtics are going to retool. Potentially, if Kawhi stays with Toronto, they're going to be decent. And you look at it and you say, man, Indiana you got to contend with. It's going to be tough.
It's an uphill climb.
Yeah.
It really is.
It doesn't seem like it was that drastic.
But, well, again, look at what you were working with. You didn't have the cap space. But what you did is now you set yourself up for the following season. The big issue here is Andre Drummond's contract. That's the big sticking point. Reggie Jackson's contract sucks because he's not a great player. He's not worth what they're paying him. But Andre Drummond, his contract is the one that really holds this team back. And that's why when Stan Van Gundy was able to get 2 trade partners to move on from him, it was such a big deal that Tom Gores was like, no, that's my boy. We drink coffee together and we go bowling at night. And you're like, wait, what? What? Like he can still be your boy. You guys can go be boys in L.A. or wherever the hell he gets traded to. Like, free up the cap space. You need some flexibility here, because do you remember when you had Greg Monroe here? Remember when you had Greg Monroe and you had Andre Drummond? You remember how you had those 2 big bodies clogging up the middle for everybody, and it just slowed everything down? Thank God Blake is able to play like a power point or a point forward where he can bring the ball up and he can do different things with the ball in his hand. But good God, man, if he was down low, this team would just be a slug out there. It'd be absolutely horrible. Derrick Rose, I think, helps open some things up. I think his three-point shooting ability has come a long way, and I think it's going to help benefit this team. I wouldn't be surprised if next season, if you've seen a split between Derrick Rose and Reggie Jackson for the first half of the season, but that split was more skewed towards Derrick Rose probably playing anywhere from 55 to 60% of the time.
The one thing I'll say is at least the Pistons aren't the Knicks. The Knicks literally set up and tanked the season.
They traded Porzingis, who was an absolute stud.
With the hope that when this year's free agency came, that they were going to get KD or Kyrie or some big names.
Yeah.
Within 4 hours, they had to put out a press release that said, hey, we apologize because the fans are up in arms. It literally was DEFCON 5 in terms of the fans' disappointment. And at least with the Pistons, you realize, okay, there is at least maybe a plan now to rebuild, even though they're not publicly saying it. They're probably going to get away from Reggie and Andre. They're going to let some of these bad contracts go. They've already gotten rid of John Lure. There's at least some sense of, okay, we're going to go younger. We're going to get some guys that can actually shoot. We got a coach that can coach these guys up to at least perform offensively and at least hustle every single game. And you got some guys to teach them in terms of Derrick Rose and Blake Griffin, at least how to be professional and how to hustle and work every single day. So when you're looking at the Knicks, they have the biggest ego. They have the fans that pay the most money to go. And unfortunately, they set up for this. They tanked, and when the time came to pull the trigger, KD and Kyrie went like, we're going to go right to your rival, the Brooklyn Nets, right across town. And I think for Knicks fans, especially those with loud voices in the media like Stephen A. Smith, they were so devastated. And at least you say, okay, the Pistons aren't as bad as the Knicks, and most of our fans realize that the Pistons probably have an easier track, at least in the future, to have some more success than the Knicks. The Knicks are starting from square one, and they made moves that nobody really is happy with. Imagine if you're a free agent and you're signed with the Knicks, and all the fans are like, "Dude, you're second rate." It's got to be tough for the Knicks. And really, bottom line, James Dolan is a really bad owner, and he's got to reap what he sowed. And unfortunately, in terms of free agency, nobody wants to come and play for the Knicks. That's really top notch.
Isn't that crazy? Because
they're not top notch anymore.
Madison Square Gardens is supposed to be the mecca of basketball, and nobody wants to go there and play because James Dolan is an asshat. It's absolutely insane. They much rather go over to Brooklyn and play for the Nets. At what point have the Knicks ever been seated behind the Nets? Never. That's crazy. And bravo to the Nets for going out and procuring
baller move
2 guys who are absolute studs. And James Dolan's reasoning, look, we talked about it on this podcast, right? We were both apprehensive about extending Kevin Durant. But at the same time, we're not the New York Knicks. We're not a team that just traded away franchise pieces to clear up cap space to go out and make a move on a guy who could totally revolutionize what you're doing over there and help your rebuild and get you to a championship in Kevin Durant. Instead, James Dolan's like, yeah, we don't want to offer him a max because he's got an Achilles issue. What? Like, come on, dude. What are you talking about? This guy is an absolute stud, and you're going to pass on it because of a medical issue.
Outside of performance, all you got to say is you'd make that $40 million in jersey sales within the first year and a half. And, you know, all the jerseys that you're going to sell with Durant on the back, please. It feels like a steal, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, well,
it's total miss by the Knicks.
Well, the Pistons got a lot of work to do, but we'll keep on it. We'll see what they're doing in the summer league action and things like that. But yeah, signing Derrick Rose is an upgrade. That's what they're doing. They're making minor moves, but yeah, I think the fans of Detroit, they're just a little underwhelmed with what's been going on, and that's just the way it's going to be until you move on from the pieces that you have, and that's just a fact. All right, stay with us. Right after this, we're going to have a chat with Darren McCarty talking Red Wings. I'm excited. Doc and Jock are excited. We hope he calls in and we get a chance to talk some Red Wing hockey. Stay with us. All right, as advertised on the phone, the host of the Grind Time podcast, Darren McCarty. You can check out his podcast at grindtimepodcast.com. Tells us that he just played golf earlier today. Darren, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, guys. Great to be on.
Yeah, he told us you played Indianwood, and how'd you do?
Well, you know what? For me, I shot 80 on the new course, which is, I'll take it at this point in the season with all the rain. I'm not in the golf mode as I usually am, but we're getting there. I'm
so jealous of you, honestly. That course is it's difficult. It's difficult for me. I love playing there. I go through about 12 balls every time I play that course.
I just played with Jeff Leston, Kyle Bogey, and Jeff Rieger from 97-1, and I bet you Rieger lost at least. He might have. He had a 30-pack of balls. He might have 2 left.
That sounds like me.
Now, I had a chance to catch up with you at the Rocket Mortgage Classic, and you told me that you were definitely going to go check out Red Wings developmental camp. What was your impression of what you saw there early on now after the NHL draft?
That's Sider. Mo Sider, he's big. He's bigger than I thought. But a lot of excitement definitely around the rink, as there should be, with having Steve Yzerman come back as GM. And the big thing you'll hear from a lot of us guys that have been here in the past and the alumni is culture. And what that means is that doesn't control wins and losses on the ice, but what it does is it controls attitude and the way you approach being a Detroit Red Wing. And, that's all you're concerned with. With the kids coming in, you just want to make them as comfortable as possible so that they can succeed. And, everybody was excited. So a lot has changed in the way that nutrition and training and things have from when I played or started to play like 27 years ago. So it's interesting. They do everything that they can to put these kids in a great position to succeed.
Darren, you mentioned change since the time that you were in camp. What types of changes have you seen since Steve Yzerman has taken over compared to when Ken Holland was general manager? I know it's only been a short period here, but what changes have you seen?
Well, I don't know if it's more the changes, but I think that, Stevie's the one and only guy that can come in and demand the respect that he does with no questions asked. And you ask me why, and I tell you because his track record as a player, as a leader, and then going away, like that's not take into consideration that he's not just moving upstairs in his first GM job. He went to Tampa, did a great job with that organization, even though they weren't able to win a cup, but they, had the talent, the team to be. What I see is he saw that being a GM is different than being a captain, and you got to make some tough decisions, and he was able to do that with the Lightning. And he, it's like anything else. We're talking golf. The more you practice, so he's had his reps in. He knows what he wants to do, and if you don't think that this means the world to him, just getting the culture right and working hard and what it meant. And I think it's unfair to say the difference between Kenny Hall and that, because it's a lot of the same, but it's just sort of like, Big Brother's back in town and you better act right or else, there's no malarkey going on down there. Everybody's business, but everybody's there and enjoying themselves and having fun. And that's what it was like for us to win.
In your time working with Ken Holland, obviously, you played under him and you saw the success there. Obviously, Ken Holland moved on to Edmonton. And I know a lot of the fans are talking about the recent past and things like that, but what's the fairest way that you can describe how to view Ken Holland? Because he did have success. He did bring Stanley Cups to Detroit, and he's no longer with the organization.
Well, in sports, it's unfortunate. What have you done for me lately, whether you're a player or an organization or anything else? So I think you have to look at the whole track record. And just like anything else, what's really, hurt him is some of the contracts and the injuries and, Pavel leaving, Hank getting hurt, Bronson contract, some other guys that haven't panned out. When you miss like that, things like this happen. It's not more his fault. It's just the direction that he wanted to go. Now, in the perfect situation, like for me, Ken Holland's one of the greatest Red Wings. He was there, and for me, we call him Uncle Kenny. So, he's as close to the member of the family because we went through all that stuff, and it's great for him. He's the type of guy that can change the culture out in Edmonton because they got, holy cow, when you have 200-point guys and you can't make the playoffs, something's wrong. You have all those first rounders over the years, so he's going to do a job out there. Plus, he's getting paid to do it. I mean, it's a win-win all around for everybody, and I'm as excited going into this hockey season as I've ever been since I've been retired.
All right, going into this hockey season, who do you think is going to make the team from these young Red Wings that you've seen at developmental camp?
Too early to tell. When in developmental camp, you when you start playing against the men, you're still playing against boys. Okay, so let's get exhibition and let's see. And, it's one of those things that I think there's some development in progress, but, you got to look at Zadina. Philip Zadina, who was a first-rounder last year, is he going to be able to make the step? I know you're looking at some of the younger guys like Rasmussen, some guys who you've seen bits and pieces of. I love the fact that we signed Valtteri Filppula. I think that that's the type of guy that, he just solidifies professionalism, both ends of the ice. Is you know what you're going to get from Phil, and Stevie knows that. It's a guy you can count on. And then Neema's a big guy. You see Stevie focusing on defense. You know, it's something that he's got a plan, and we got to wait to see what that plan is. But starting at the draft, I think you see the direction moving into free agency. So it's one of these things that we're lucky to be able to sit back and actually enjoy.
Now, what's interesting, too, is, and I want to get your sense because I know you have deep inside knowledge of these guys, but not only Steve Yzerman's job to make this organization better, but the guys that he's also working with. And now you've seen the addition of Pat Verbeek. You know some of your grind line teammates, Maltby and Draper, are part of the organization. Specifically, and to the point, what do Chris Draper and Kirk Maltby bring to the table in working with the organization at this time?
Well, I think it's experience, obviously, and for all of us, to be around and the game has changed, but to being a great teammate and doing the little things and stuff in the game of hockey, you still need to do the little things. That's what separates, at the end of the day, winners and losers. So Pat Verbeek obviously had been with Stevie, not only like teammate, but down in Tampa too. So that's his guy. So whoever Stevie puts in place, and the fact that they are guys with a reputation, you mentioned Maltby Drape, they got 4 cups also. So, that goes a long way as far as what they see. Now, I know for a fact Walt scouts the pros, and he loves, the Central Division, and he loves doing that. And Drape loves the development and watching the young kids and seeing that. Everybody, finds their sort of niche, what they like. Me personally, I like being out and about and doing the Rocket Mortgage stuff in front of the fans and stuff, and then going and talking to the kids in GR, once a month or something like this and see how they're doing. So I'm more concerned on, how they're doing in life than I'll let everybody else worry about how they're doing on there.
We're talking to and enjoying the conversation with Darren McCarty. Check out his podcast and website at grindtimepodcast.com. Now, you told us but once a month or so, you're in Grand Rapids. You're checking out the scene there with the young cats. What message do you deliver to them? And for those that don't peek into Grand Rapids too often, what can they expect, and who's down there that we should pay attention to in Grand Rapids?
Well, there's a lot of guys, and obviously it's, one of the big things, for example, is why people don't talk about, because a lot of people don't understand the collective bargaining or the salary cap and the contracts, and if you draft different guys and they can play in this league, well, that most sider can immediately play in the AHL, which automatically gives him development, like I said, playing against guys. Obviously, Philip Zerdina is a guy that's probably going to be back and forth unless, he has a great camp. The guys that you've seen at the end of the season last year or at the beginning, like Dennis Cholowski, who had a great beginning of the season, but obviously being young needed some maturing or seasoning in the minors. But, there's a number of guys, and the best part is there's competition, healthy competition. Nobody's, you got your Larkins and your Manthas and the guys like that, but there's going to be a healthy competition, especially on defense. And that's what we need, because there's no question that's what we've been lacking in the past 5-6 years.
Darren, going into the season, which position group do you think Steve Yzerman and everybody who's working in that front office has done the best job to strengthen and make, as you said, everybody's competing for a spot? Which one is the most competitive right now as we head into camp?
Yeah, I got to think, the solidified is probably up the middle right now, but the most defense, and whether it's, the guy last year who really made the jump is Veronic. So, Phil, you're looking for bigger things from him because you've seen that development. Now you're looking at Bowery, you're looking at, like I said, Sider, you're looking at some of these guys who are going to get a chance. You had Baccarat come up last year, who's a big guy, and obviously, a guy that in this day and age protect his teammates. So there's different angles to go. There's different things, but the bottom line is that there's going to be competition. It wouldn't surprise me if there's, a few of them are interchanged back and forth just so they get the experience in the ice time.
You brought up Mo Snyder a few seconds ago. Were you surprised when Steve Yzerman drafted him with the 6th overall pick in this NHL draft?
No, absolutely not. It's like I told everybody. what you'll see is he's got a plan, and you're not supposed to know what it is because he's not me. If I had a plan, I'd tell you because I'd let you watch it come to fruition, and
Right.
because that's just the way I am. He's not going to do that, right? But but I know this after the fact that he also was in Germany a bunch of times watching his kids. And if you look at the intricacies, so the kid comes out of the German league, right? Where are you going to find something? You heard of the German league? Not many people have. You guys have because you're hockey guys. But you haven't heard of that. So it's sort of like the old Swedish league, the old Russian league. You know, you're looking into to find what you need. Now, when a guy plays in a smaller league that's not as talented, the talent around him isn't as good. So it takes him to go to the juniors or go somewhere else is when he gets noticed and say, oh, this kid's got something. And the bottom line is when the second thing out of Steve Yzerman's mouth is this kid's hockey IQ. I don't know if you know this or not, but there's a lot of guys that have great hockey IQ that he's going to call stupid. So the fact that he calls the young kid, 18 years old, that he's got hockey IQ, impresses Stevie, and obviously that's all I need. I'm full blown soldier in the man's army. So, but it's because I've seen what he's done, and he's just going to use what he's learned, and he's going to put his Stevie-isms on it, and he's going to work as hard as he can to be successful. That is a fact.
I want to get your sense, too, regarding last season's NHL season. The St. Louis Blues won the Stanley Cup. I thought it was a great final, the Blues and the Bruins. What's your thoughts on the state of the NHL and what you saw from the Blues? I mean, what an unbelievable story where they're literally in last place. They change goaltenders. They make this run and eventually win the Stanley Cup and makes everybody believe, wow, you can even be in last place in January and you still got a chance if you make the right moves and you come together as a group. You still got a chance to win the ultimate prize going through the toughest playoff. What was your thoughts on this last season in the NHL and your thoughts on the game of hockey in 2019?
Well, here's a couple things about that. Is that I'm the first one that is going to say the game's changed. But that finals was old-time hockey. That was two men's teams just bashing each other's brains in. And 7 games and, you know, last one standing. What do you always say? You ask, what do you need to win the playoffs? You need goaltending. You need to stay healthy. And you need puck luck. Boston didn't get they had tons of injuries, as you saw that, which makes sense because in those series you don't come out unscathed. Binnington did what he needed to do in the first period, and then they got the timely goals with Riley Tip. And then when you score in the last minute of a period in any game, let alone the 7th game of the Stanley Cup, I don't care who you are, that's demoralizing. Now, the whole thing about it's about attitude. Craig Ruby, who was hired as coach and brought Steve Ott, who played for the Wings for years, from Windsor, Spitfire, Plymouth, whatever, NHL guy with the Dallas Stars. It's the attitude they brought because he told me this. He said when they came in there, it was always pointing fingers. And it was I should do this and I should do that. I can play with him. And they came in there and they took the old school mentality of shut up and go to work and play for each other. And I think through the ups and downs, in every different series, they face that adversity, and it's just apropos for them to win their first ever Stanley Cup in the way that they did it. They absolutely earned it. But it goes to show you that the parity of the league, the way it's set up, where you got to play the games out because there's no gimmies anymore. But it also goes to show you that if you believe in as a group that you can achieve something and you don't care, bottom line, the guy left or right of you, that you'll go to the end of the earth for him, then you got a chance. That's what I thought.
I think it's one of the greatest places in the world, and I think it's one of the most unique and dynamic places in the world. But how important is a hockey locker room?
You know what? For me, it's probably next to my wife the most important place. And for me, more so, you don't realize it until you're retired, but the locker room still goes on. Because that's all you miss. I don't miss playing. I don't miss getting up with hands the size of, meat cleavers and taking an hour to be able to move in the morning. I don't miss that stuff, but I miss the guys. And then we still have it. And then even it almost feels to us as alumni that with Stevie coming back, it's almost like we're back in it again. But we don't have to play, so it's even better. I got 4 cups. I got a Stanley Cup pitch and goal. I beat up the villain, all that stuff. And now I get to sit back and cheer on one of the people I have the most respect for in the world, and try to watch him do and watch these kids bring something back to this city that we were able to do, because I know how special it was. And for me, my job is just to do whatever is possible to allow these guys to do that, because that's what we were allowed to do.
We greatly enjoyed the hockey conversation with Darren McCarty. Check out his podcast. It's really good. GrindTimePodcast.com. Darren's in the broadcasting game. He's doing a great job dropping the knowledge regarding hockey. Thank you so much for your time. I look forward to catching up with you again, talking hockey around the time of training camp. Thanks, Darren. Have a great summer. We look forward to the conversation in the future.
All right, buddy. Good luck out there on that new course. Keep the ball in play. It'll be all right.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Darren. Appreciate it. We got to get you in studio, man. It'll be a good time.
All right. Sounds good.
All right, brother. Take it easy.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Man, cuz that was great to talk to Darren. How that came about was I ran into him. He was broadcasting from the Rocket Mortgage Classic. So I went up to him. I saw that he was broadcasting, and I just said, hey, I'd love to have you on my podcast. Can you come on today? And he's like, I was like, are you going to be here till past noon or anything? And he's like, no, you know what? Hold off a week. I'm going to be at developmental camp. I'd love to come on. And that's awesome. The best feeling I had was he saw my badge. And he goes, oh, I've heard of you guys. So I was like, yes, obviously a guy like that, great respect. And I like the fact that he's passionate. Look, he may be right, he may be wrong about Steve Yzerman, but the fact is, he said, I'm a soldier in the guy's army. I believe that everybody at this point in time has to respect Steve Yzerman. And so for those that are critical of some moves, look, if there's anybody in Detroit that's deserved benefit of the doubt, it's Steve Yzerman. Okay, won Stanley Cups, has been an administrator in another organization. I mean, Tampa Bay in the playoffs, they're one of the elite franchises in the Eastern Conference. So come on now. Pause on the concerns. Let's give it a couple years. He's done the right thing. He's trying to obviously make moves to better the team, but it's going to be slow. He's not going to come in 1 year and win the Stanley Cup. He's come out and said, look, pause, everybody, relax. I'm going to make some moves now. And I think
it's going to take time, he said.
Yeah, he's going to take time. And I think what he's going to be trying to instill is a better attitude, looking for draft picks that are going to fit the system and going out there and playing a certain way. And I think that Darren brought it up many times. The game has changed, and Steve Yzerman's a guy that has surrounded himself with good, talented people, and I think that going forward, they're going to make selections. They're going to probably be guys that are going to be really solid. They're going to be guys that love hockey, smart IQ, and are going to come in here and play hockey the right way. Otherwise, he'll be quick to move, because a guy like Steve Yzerman will come in and he'll instill this attitude, this aura of like, hey, get to work, focus on hockey, eliminate all the nonsense, and then we're going to have success. And I think the final piece, though, I think he'll realize you could. Now, it's not to say that Blashill is a guy that doesn't belong in the NHL. If you want to solidify a team, look what happens.
Blashill.
No, I don't hate him. I just say that you can find better. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
There's guys with more experience that you could probably bring in that with the same crew could get them to the playoffs and maybe win a round. Now, do they have the coach that's going to win them the Stanley Cup? I don't think so. Not yet. But it's on the horizon, and I think that sooner or later you're going to see the Wings back in the playoffs, and we're going to be celebrating at LCA. And Darren McCarty's great. He came on, gave us the time, and that was an awesome interview. I was really enjoying it because he seemed so passionate and a good guy.
He's awesome to talk to. I will say this. I was impressed, or I have been impressed, with what Steve Yzerman has done during free agency. Going out and grabbing guys for positions of need and signing them to respectable, not overpaying them, signing them to respectable contracts that aren't long-term. Most of these guys have 2-year deals. That's awesome. That helps the organization out so much. It's incredible, because I feel like with the prior general manager, he'd assign guys to 4- and 5-year deals and gave max money to players who probably didn't deserve it, or guys you probably could have got on a discount, whereas Steve Yzerman's been able to come in and do that, and I think that's exceptional. And I like I said, I've been really impressed with what he's done during free agency so far. The Filppula deal, outstanding. I like bringing in Pickard for goaltending, as well as the defenseman. I can't remember his name off the top of my head right now. But I love all those signings. I think those are all great. I think that's going to help this team, not just this year, but the year after. I think also it helps with the cap flexibility that this team now has going into 2 years from now. I think it's great.
All right, time to show love to the sponsors. When we come back, got to kind of talk to Adam about what he did at the Rocket Mortgage Classic, made a faux pas, and also debate a little bit. Let's say you have some free time and you're a guy hanging out. What would you rather do? Adam and I will have a fun debate. Stay tuned to find out. The reason why we've been able to have great guests, the reason why the studio lights are on, the mics are hot, is because we got great sponsors, and I want to show love to two of them, the Motor City Pawnbrokers and the Flick Chat. The Motor City Pawnbrokers are the one-stop pawn shop when you're in need of short-term cash or are looking for quality brand name new or pre-owned merchandise. With locations in Detroit, Ferndale, Roseville, and Warren, their mission is to deliver exceptional value. For all information regarding the Motor City Pawnbrokers, to find out about all the deals, go check out MotorCityPawnbrokers.com. Mark and the crew, their goal, their mission is to deliver exceptional value. They want to change everyone's perception of pawn shops. If you go in there, you're going to notice clean pawn shops. You're going to notice great customer service. If you have any questions about the loans or how the process works, you can go to the website or go ask. All the guys there are very friendly, the crew, the staff. Mark has people there that definitely one of the goals is great customer service. So for all information regarding the Motor City Pawnbrokers, visit MotorCityPawnbrokers.com. If you've enjoyed the conversation that we had, if you want to carry it on, if you've agreed with anything that I said or Adam said, or if you want to react to what Darren McCarty said on our podcast regarding being a soldier of Steve Yzerman, then carry on the conversation over there at Flick. It's so great. All we do is we have fun, we debate. If there's a great wrestling event going on, then we talk about it, we engage, and I think it's a great place to go and extend sports conversations. The Flick Chat application is so easy. I mean, you just push the invite link, and boom, within minutes, you're in the group, you're invited, you're in, and you can have great conversations. If you're hosting a podcast, it's a great way to build engagement. Tell your audience what you're talking about, and that's what we do. A great sponsor of the network is Flick, Detroit Sports' newest sports chat headquarters. Become a member. And this month, a great thing's happening. One new member that signs up this month has a chance to win an autographed baseball of Lou Whitaker. That's what we do here at the network. Yes, we give back. We've been so lucky to have experiences. We have great relationships. And one of the things that we always do and try is, hey, is there anything we can give to our supporters? Hey, if we're part of something and someone else joins it, I mean, I know it's no easy task to join something based on what someone says. But hey, if you join Flick before July 19th, you're entered, and you might have a chance to win an autographed baseball from a future Baseball Hall of Famer. Who else is going to give you that? Download Flick, get into Detroit Sports' newest headquarters. Wait, so cuz?
Heel AJ Styles, what?
Oh! Tune in to this week's Doc and Jock Wrestling Podcast. You're going to hear an excited DOC, baby. It took 1 week. That's what I love about professionalism. You can see others and say, okay, what's wrong with wrestling? 1 week, cuz the man showed up, and within 1 week, someone's going through the Tron, and it was awesome. I loved it. It was such a great experience watching wrestling. It was so different. I loved it. I was like, finally, when you have professionalism, it's so great. Now, I want to ask you this, though. Should our next goal, I mean, obviously we make goals here at the network, cover sports, do great podcasts, get great guests, some sponsors give us some money, great stuff. Should we just be like, hey, Darren, hook us up. Let's play Doc and Jock and Darren McCarty. You know what? Should we start asking our guests to go golfing with us?
I think we should.
Right?
You'd be like, I'm never golfing with these guys.
Yeah, no, these guys, what the hell?
How do three of us take 8 hours to golf a course?
There's not
18
enough
holes.
There's not enough cron in Detroit to get me out of this. So you enjoyed the Rocket Mortgage Classic.
I did.
And I wanted to catch up with you because everyone I caught up with, Neil Rule, guys from the Fan Report podcast, I even met Dave Rexroth from Channel 7. I was so excited. I'm like, you know what? I don't care anymore. I'm just going to be that guy where if I see you and I like you, I'm going to be like, bam, pull out the phone, and you'll see my selfie has a certain style, and then I'm kind of off to the side. I don't want to be in the selfie. I want to be in the photo. Yeah, it's half of me because, look, it's just, I'm not all about it. I want to take the photo, but I got a lot of selfies, but I didn't get a selfie with my guy because I was doing the work, and obviously there's time for breaks. I'm like, hey, where are you at? I've been seeing that I know you're following Ricky Fowler. You're stalking his girlfriend. Where are you at? Let's take a photo. You're like, dude, I already bounced. I was like, it's 2.5 hours. What do you mean you bounced?
I was there for 4.
Okay, you got there early though. 10 a.m.
I got there at 10.
You left at 2.
And I left at around 2.
And you're like, okay, I went around the corner to Centerfolds. I'm like,
which is horrible. It's a horrible strip club.
I'm like, you literally found one on 7 Mile and Woodward, bro. Come on,
7 Mile and John R.
7 John R is where Adam goes. I'm like, come on, bro. 8 miles a mile away, mound. The upper echelon is like
Coliseum is legitimately all of like
10
2
minutes away.
miles. Yeah.
So your faux pas is you went to the worst place. And I'm like, I have a moral dilemma. Do I keep going or do I show up there? And you're like, bro, there's no fives there. There's not even five.
No, it was horrible. So here's the thing. All right.
Why there? There's like 6 better ones
Yes.
and half a mile up the road.
All over the place. That place holds a very special place in my heart.
Oh, okay.
So it's just it's an absolute hole. It's an absolute hole in the wall. You park in this parking lot. You got to pay the guy $2 to watch your car. He's not even watching your car.
Right.
And then you got to go into the bar. And the beer is cheap. It's generally cold. The girls are not good looking.
Yeah, exactly.
They're very hit. It's just, I don't know. It's like your favorite hole in the wall. Like, why do we go to this bar? It's a total dive. I don't know. Why do we go to Centerfolds? It's a total dive. We just do. And honestly, it was one of those things. I was with my buddy Scott, and we had walked the course. We had pretty much walked the entire course, checked out almost every single hole you could check out. I have no idea how I did not run into you anywhere. I must have passed you when you were running into the to the media center or something. But we had covered so much ground over the course of 4 hours, and it was so damn hot that day. We're like, okay, let's get out of here. Let's go grab something to eat, and let's just continue what we're doing there. And by continue what we were doing was drinking. And I was like, let's do this. If Centerfolds is open, we've got to stop for at least one. He was like, it's 2 p.m. And I was like, I know.
They're open. He's like, they're open.
We have to stop
open
for at least one. And he was like, all right, cool. He's like, it's going to be horrible, right? And I was like, oh, yeah, it's going to be absolutely awful. So we drive by, and it's open. Lo and behold, it's open. We go in, and it's horrible. It's absolutely awful. We order one drink. We can't drink it fast enough, and we get out. I spent all of, so I think my beer was like $3, and I spent $2. I set it on the stage. And the one girl was attractive. The other girl was just kind of there, and I felt bad because nobody else was giving her any money. So I spent all of $7.
Yeah.
2 to park, 3 for a beer, and $2 on these 2 broads. I mean, come on. What are we talking about here? You know? I mean, it's what it was. We stopped in for one, and then we hurried up and bounced, and we ended up going to Johnny Black's.
Okay,
I don't know if you've ever
bad.
been to Johnny Black's. Our waitress was smoking hot. She smelled incredible, and it was a good time there.
So
Tons of scenery.
So we love podcasting. I'm walking up like the 13th hole, and I'm thinking, okay, Adam's there. So that's what I thought. The first thing I thought was, oh my gosh, Adam would do sports in a strip club. And I'm like, okay, I was thinking, you know what? I want to ask you this, okay? Because sometimes guys' free time is limited, and you have to pick and choose wisely regarding what you do. It's important because everyone's hard working. We're all doing 2 and 3 jobs. We're all trying to get ahead, all trying to make moves, make that money move, and we're all trying to do stuff. But sometimes you do got to golf with the boys. You got to have a good time. And so I was thinking as you were telling me what you were doing, I was like, okay, what would be better? Let's say, for example, you got a day off. Your work says, look, you've done good work. Take a day off, and you have an opportunity either to go to a sporting event like a Tigers game and a strip club, or would you rather just hang out by the water and drink at a bar? Because I thought, you know what? I think you could definitely split people down the middle with that, because a lot of people would like to go to a sporting event, watch it through, and then maybe hang out at the strip club at the bar.
Can we make this a Twitter poll question?
Possible. But the thing I would say is, in terms of to broaden it out, if you have a day off and you got 5-6 hours to kill, what would you do? Would you go to a sporting event and to completion, watch the entire round? Would you go to a strip club, or would you rather go to the beach and hang out by the water and have some cocktails, or would you rather just go to the bar with the fellas? What's the best thing to do? You got a couple hours free and you want to really enjoy it. What's the best thing to do? Sports, strip club, beach, bar?
I don't
boating.
think
a lot of people go to Cass Lake out here. A lot of people love to hang out on the boat and drink and hang out and stuff like that. But of those 4 options, what would you rather do?
I don't think you can lose either way. Yeah, I think
which one's best?
I think you're winning.
Well, you can't do all 4.
No, you can't. You can't. So for me, right, I like drinking by the water. Okay, but that being said, I like drinking by the pool, not necessarily the beach. There's usually too much going on at the beach, and you got to deal with other people's badass kids. So all that being said, I'm going to go to the sporting event, and then I'm going to go to the strip club, just because I'm a degenerate, and I love seeing boobs, and I like talking to the girls. I find them to be fascinating creatures, all of them.
See, I would disagree. I would say that the best thing to do with your time, because when you go to a sporting event, it's also mentally draining because you cheer.
Yeah.
And that's what I say is that, you know what, I was tired covering the events because I was into all the shots. I was tweeting. I was trying to get access, walking all over the course.
You were working.
Yeah, I was working.
You worked like 6 days straight on top of doing your regular job.
Exactly. But no, I'm a fan, obviously, and I'm crazy. I like to do it. I like to do that stuff. But at the same time, I would say that if I have a free time, I would say that if I had free time, I would just hang at the beach, drink all day, and enjoy a day at the beach or a day on the water. I think it's relaxing. I think it provides you an opportunity to refresh. Being at a sporting event is fun, but it's very costly, and it does take up a lot of your time. So that's my opinion on it, is that I think if I had a day off and the missus is out of town, I'm hanging out by the water, pool day, having a couple cocktails. I put the phone away and just hang out. Sports and strip club is definitely fun, but I would say this. In order to relax and enjoy your time, I think that the beach and the bar might provide a little bit more fun too with, if you're single, looking for ladies or having a good time with it, and the boys, hanging out with the fellas, having a couple cocktails. Sports in the strip club, a little too distracting. Even at the centerfolds, wasn't there like a loud DJ and loud music, or was the music even hit up? Was there DJ?
Yeah, there was DJ.
Okay, so it had what you needed. It's loud, right? You can't really hang out with the fellas, have some conversation.
It's not so loud you can't have a conversation. Mm-hmm. It was good.
How come you couldn't stick with the Rocky Mortgage Classic from 10 till 6 till the round was over? The leaders teed off till 2. So you left when the leaders teed off. You watched Ricky Fowler.
I did. Yeah, I caught Ricky Fowler. I caught his. We'll talk about his girlfriend here in a second. I had breakfast at 8 a.m, and I hadn't eaten anything all day. And my buddy Scott, who I went with, hadn't eaten anything all morning either. So it was more of a planning and a feeding issue for both of us. We had got to the point where we were so hungry that did we want to pay, I don't know, I think it was like $6 or $8 for a nacho, or did we want to just go drink in air conditioning and eat something that's gonna really satiate you? You know what I'm saying? And that kind of won out. It was the food, and it was the cold beer, and it was the air conditioning that really won out. Overall, I'd do it again, and I'd probably do it different. If I could do it again, I would probably have gotten there a little bit earlier in the morning, and I would have stayed later. But all that being said, I had a little bit of a schedule I had to keep because the wife made dinner plans that night.
Gotcha. So you kept the schedule.
So it was one of those things where you ever find yourself spreading yourself just a little bit too thin?
Of course.
So it was one of those things where the wife's like, hey, we're having dinner at this time. And I'm like, why are we having dinner at this time? Like, that's way too early. And she's like, that's when we're having dinner. She's like, so don't get too full when you go to eat. And I said, oh, shit. I said, okay, fine. So it was one of those things where I just I had to fit it all in, and I was able to fit it all in. And that's kind of why, I spent way too much time at Johnny Black's, way too much time. Probably could have shaved an hour off there and spent that at the Rocket Mortgage. It probably would have been better. Or maybe at the strip club. I don't know.
Nice. Great podcast. I enjoyed the hour talking sports. Definitely check out Darren McCarty's podcast. We enjoyed talking hockey with him. See, for those that say we don't talk hockey, we got a great guest, a guy that definitely loves the Red Wings and is connected, obviously. He plays golf, too. Guy that plays golf. Can't disagree with that. Always a good time. For the Jock, Adam Strozinski, I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Thank you for spending the last hour with us. The Detroit Sports Podcast, we're lucky. We're available now anywhere your favorite podcast is available. I'm thankful that you guys have stayed with us, followed us, and definitely took in and enjoyed the coverage. For Adam the Jock Strozinski, I'm the Doc, John Macaroon. Happy 4th of July, everybody. We'll see everybody next week.
This was locker room talk.
Second dick.
Sorry, Detroit. Didn't quite work out.
And all I can say is Detroit Sports Podcast scores.
I have voices in my head. They counsel me. They understand. They talk to me.